Good evening, everybody. It is Groundhog's Day. Obviously, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow for 6 more weeks of winter, but who cares about that, really, because we're here to talk about racing. Welcome to the second edition of Doc's Racing Digest. I am Doc. I am a veterinarian by trade, but a passionate racing fan in all other facets of my life. And as I promised from last week's show, we do have a much better intro this week. We also have a little bit more of a better backdrop here than that lousy blue sheet. But, you know, you can see a little bit of horse racing stuff. We're still working on all the details of getting the set to look a little bit better. But hey, this is all about racing. I'm glad you're here to watch us, and let's get right to it. We are going to start with the race that everybody was talking about last week. It is the Pegasus, and let us take a look at it right now and what happened and transpired in what is sort of technically right now the world's richest horse race.
And they're off in the Pegasus World Cup. Beautiful beginning for Gunrunner, and Florent Geroux wasting no time. He's going to use some of his speed to get position, but Mike Smith has beat him to the punch as Collected moves to the rail and moves to the lead. It's Collected in front. Gunrunner gets the spot he wants. He's second in the two-path with West Coast at the inside third. Followed fourth by Giant Expectation. Sharp Aztec is a bit keen, angled 3 wide while racing in fifth. It's 2 back to Toast of New York, mid-flight and 5 lengths off the pace setter. Then comes War Story and Gunnavera. Seeking the Soul is next, followed by Stellar Wind and Fear the Cowboy, and Singing Bullet is last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch. The opening quarter, 23-2. Down the backstretch they go. Collected has the lead. Horse of the Year, Gunrunner, latched onto him well second from Giant Expectations in third. West Coast is at the inside fourth, a length better than Sharp Aztec at fifth. Then Toast of New York sixth and about 5 lengths off the lead. 2 in front of Seeking the Soul, who improves inside of War Story. Then Gunnavera and Stellar Wind. Fear the Cowboy given the green light to try to make some ground, and Singing Bullet is still last as they swing around the far turn. 46-3 for the opening half mile. Slowly but surely, Gunrunner turns up the pressure, and there he goes. Gunrunner at the 3 furlong point now takes the lead. Collected is all in. West Coast working into the clear now, and the Travers winner is going to try to get to the Breeders' Cup winner as they go to the quarter-mile pole. Giant Expectations is scrubbed on by Gary Stevens with Sharp Aztec wide. It's a less than a quarter of a mile to go. 3 quarters, 1:10-1, and they're at the top of the stretch. Gunrunner set down for the drive by Florent Geroux. He leads by 2. West Coast, the only one with a chance. He's second. Well clear of the others. A battle on for third with Fear the Cowboy coming on. Gunrunner needs another 16th. It's Gunrunner in front. He'll go out a winner. He's the horse of the year, and he's Gunrunner with an unforgettable performance in the Pegasus World Cup. He won by 2 over West Coast second. The local horses did well. Gunnavera got third. Fear the Cowboy was fourth, and the final time was 1:47-2. Gunrunner.
And, well, really, you know, what can you say? Gunrunner, he is just absolutely the real deal. Put on truly an amazing performance coming from a very, very difficult post position. And really, just was able to dictate the race the way exactly he wanted to with that stalking trip. I do think he probably got a little bit of a help when Sharp Azteca didn't really break as well and kind of got shuffled back there, especially into the first turn. Couldn't really run his race, but still, Gunrunner, the real deal. Great to see him go out, the champion that he was. And this beautiful little graphic here from Horse Racing Nation, an absolutely wonderful site. Definitely check them out. Kind of shows the entire order of finish here and how much each horse, or where they finished, I guess I should say. And kind of some interesting things here, especially Toast of New York finishing 12th and last. He was kind of like the wise guy horse maybe a little bit, but clearly, I guess, one race off of 3 years, you know, it does not really make a wonderful setup as far as that goes. So that's really kind of what happened in the Pegasus as we come back live here now. And Well, the Pegasus was kind of billed as this, I don't know if you really want to call it a bridge race, but, you know, obviously Stronach always thinking outside the box, which is a really wonderful thing, and it was a really wonderful race both years that it's been run. However, there are some questions as far as, like, is it really the best use of money like that? Is it the best thing that's out there at that time of year? Is it really attracting the top caliber horses? And is it really keeping horses in training longer than necessarily they would be? Obviously it is if you've got horses like Gunrunner that ran one more race. However, there's a lot of people, and myself included, that really think that while it's a great idea, it's not really working out practically. And I do think there is a better way of putting money to, you know, all of that stuff, and we are going to talk about that right now as we look at an early part in this episode of Doc's Discussion Points. Okay, so anybody who's kind of followed me a little bit, especially on the comment threads and things like that, feel or know that I feel very strongly that the way the handicap division is kind of arranged really makes it difficult for these horses and the owners of these horses to want to keep them in training. The money is in the breeding shed, and the money is in the breeding rights. And that's got to change. And there's only really one way to do that, and that is to set up something akin to what people that remember back in the early 90s was the American Championship Racing Series. This was an amazing series of handicap horse races that were put together throughout the country. Horses raced coast to coast, and there was bonus money tied to it, and it was a point system. Fans of today that may be just getting into racing think more of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, things like that, those kind of point setups where there's a large bonus tied to it. That $16 million would go so much further, at least in this fan's opinion, to being put towards bonus money for a series. A series designed solely for older horses, and there would be caveats to it, where basically horses would have to run in so many races of the series. This would bring back some of those great rivalries that we never see anymore because there's so many different Grade 1 races out there. Nothing is really tied to anything anymore, and all these horses can basically duck each other until, you know, the end of the year in the Breeders' Cup. And then in one race, they don't run the race. Everybody wonders how good were they, how good were they not. You know, and when you've got the Breeders' Cup Classic, the Pegasus, and the Dubai World Cup, really, owners only have the impetus to run their horses 3 times a year, if they really want to. And really, the way that schedule is set up, it almost means that the break for these horses is now coming over the spring and summer when everybody is really supposed to be out at the track rooting these horses on. We need these horses to stay in training, and a series of races with a large bonus tied to it would be the way to do that. What would it require? It would require something that we've wanted to see for a long time in the racing industry, and that is for all of these different racing entities to get off their high horses, work together for the good of the sport, and iron out a series like this. It is not very difficult to do. Heck, you could tie it to the Breeders' Cup win and you're in races if you really wanted to. And there's other things that you could get out of it too, as far as really enticing fan excitement by being able to follow these horses. You can make a huge social media presence of it. In addition, you could also really almost create like a fantasy owner option for fans, where maybe they would all get to select a horse that may be running in this series, and all the fans that were tied to that horse, if they were to go on and win the bonus money, are entered into a drawing to get 1% of that bonus money. Are there a lot of kinks that probably would have to be worked out in something like this? Yes. Is it a bad idea? No. The problem is we need to get a lot of these racetrack execs to sit down at the same table at the same time, drop the egos, drop the concern for being the one that wants the monopoly in this game, and just iron it out and get it done. And those are Doc's discussion points for this episode of Doc's Racing Digest. What do you think? Feel free to comment or drop me a line at shelterdoc38@yahoo.com. Maybe I'll read some on the next episode. But really, a series is what is needed in this sport for handicap horses. I am very happy to say that when I was at the Pennsylvania State Racehorse Commission meeting just this past week, it was announced that they are bringing back sort of a series like that for the Mid-Atlantic states. And that's going to be really exciting to see, with bonus money tied to it. And it's going to be for older horses that are going to run at the tracks of Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. You know, it's just going to be a really fun series, and Delaware as well, a really fun series to follow. And hopefully something like that will catch on and hopefully go nationally. So those are Doc's discussion points. So, kind of moving on, I did say last week that we are going to have a little bit of interactive fun here, and I do want to bring this up real quick. There it is. There we go. So here is a little thing for you to ponder as we go through the rest of the episode. Time to find out how much you know about this sport. So, we just recently handed out the Eclipse Award for the top apprentice jockey. What is the common name given to apprentice jockeys by racetrackers? We'll have the answer at the end of the show. Alright, so think about that as we go through the rest of the episode, and we will have the answer just a little bit later on after we've discussed a little bit more. Well, what was the other big thing that kind of happened last week, or maybe 10 days ago? As I said, I couldn't quite get to it because it had just happened the day before we were trying to put together our first broadcast. It is the Eclipse Awards, and we just wanted to, of course, show that to everybody and run that through real quick here. And let's pop them in and see what we've got here. No real major surprises a lot in this group. Good Magic, some people felt maybe Bolt d'Oro should have gotten it. There's been a lot of criticism actually maybe of the ride that Nakatani gave on him in the Breeders' Cup cost him at least getting closer or potentially the win. Good Magic, you know, he kind of burst onto the scene and he won his first race in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but I went back and watched some of his other races. He really wasn't that bad in the Champagne either, so I could see where maybe some people wanted to give that to him. 3-year-old male West Coast, 3-year-old female Abel Tasman, those are basically, you know, no-brainers. Older Dirt, or of course, Gun Runner. Older Dirt female, Forever Unbridled. It was kind of really sad to see what happened with Songbird, but I'm glad she retired and, you know, will obviously go on to be a great broodmare. Female Sprinter was a very interesting one in the fact that really Unique Bella hadn't done that much through most of the year. She was kind of big in the beginning of the year, but flopped a little bit, obviously, in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. So there were some that were kind of a little confused about that. You know, the others, again, kind of, you know, go without saying. Congratulations to Chad Brown and Jose Ortiz, obviously two very deserving. The apprentice jockey, Evan Roman, and again, apprentice was just the topic of that quiz question a second ago. And, of course, Horse of the Year, Gun Runner. You can't fault him. There are some people that, you know, have questioned exactly, you know, was he the kind of horse that really should have gotten it over Arrogate? There was a lot of discussion, really, about should Arrogate have even gotten the Longines World Best Racehorse award. And the way the criteria was, yes, but Gun Runner put together the far more impressive season through all of the stakes that he won, and won impressively. And, you know, whether Arrogate just didn't fire his best on Del Mar surface or not, we'll never really know. But again, as a lot of people say, a truly great or really, really good racehorse can win on any kind of racetrack at any place. And Gun Runner proved that he really was that great through that campaign. You know, glad to see him win one more time in the Pegasus, and you know, hopefully have a very, very successful stud career. So that was kind of what was happening in the older horse ranks. Now we're going to move on to what everybody wants to talk about this time of year, and that, of course, is the Kentucky Derby Trail. And obviously it was a kind of a quiet week on the Derby Trail last week. There really wasn't much going on, which is why we focused on the Pegasus. But now we're ready to move right ahead again into the Kentucky Derby. Okay, I do apologize for that. We did run into, again, some more technical difficulties that, of course, will plague me over these first couple of episodes. However, we are going to look, again, Good Magic, Firenze Fire, Mackenzie, Bolt d'Oro. Basically, none of these places have changed because there's been no races on the actual points awarded series of races that happened last week. However, there was a very interesting maiden race that happened at Gulfstream Park, and, you know, there was a kind of on the undercard of the Pegasus. And I did want to make everybody aware of it because there was a horse that caught my eye. He didn't win, but I want you to watch the last half mile of this race and see just how good this full brother to Orb potentially could be. Let us check it out.
The Green Moster trying to rebid. 3 back to Mr. Mack in personal time, and nothing yet from Pendrell Moon. They round the far turn at the 3 furlong point, and the leader is Life's a Parlay, but he can't shake free of Traveling Midas, who's sticking right with them. These two have quickened up at the 5/16 and opened well clear of the rest, led by Demolition, who's trying to run on the outside of Rose's Vision. Then comes Watch 10, and they're at the top of the stretch. This battle continues. Life's a Parlay, now given a green light by Johnny V to try to quicken up, and he does exactly that. At even money, Life's a Parlay settles into the lane, crossing ahead of Traveling Midas and well clear of Personal Time. Personal Time really rolling, time ticking away. Life's a Parlay trying to get home. Personal Time's going to make this close. Life's a Parlay, Personal Time. Life's a Parlay won it. Personal Time ran out of racetrack second ahead of Traveling Midas third, then Demolition and numero 13.
And there you go. So, Personal Time. Full brother, as I said to Orb, I'll admit I'm a little biased. I absolutely loved Orb as a racehorse. It is really sad that he didn't get a chance to run as a 4-year-old, as I think he really would have blossomed. You know, should Jannies, who knows? The Derby gods may shine on them again. Obviously got a long way to go. That was his first race. He's still a maiden, but just a very, very impressive turn of foot there. And who knows? You've got the other, you know, the parlay horse that won. Could be a hell of a parlay, winning a maiden race and then going on to the Derby as well. And he's a Pletcher horse, and we all know how good Pletcher is at Gulfstream this time of year and how many horses he usually has primed for the first Saturday in May. So what do we have going on as far as the races this week? There are 3 that are going on that everybody should be aware of, and we'll pull the first one up here, and that is the Wither Stakes. And that's happening at Aqueduct, and you can see there's certainly a very compact, but a very, very potentially talented field in there. So any one of these horses really could make a huge step forward and, you know, start claiming their rights to maybe taking their place higher on a lot of people's Derby lists this year. So definitely want to check out the Withers. The next race that we've got going on out at Santa Anita is the Robert B. Lewis, and we are going to transfer over to that right now. Again, kind of the weakest, I would say, of the 3 prep races that have points this week. In California, it's kind of, you've really got the top little tier of horses, and then you've got kind of everybody else. So this may be a race where you really do see some of these horses start to break out a little bit. You know, as everybody says, remember, 2-year-olds can, or 3-year-olds, I should say, can definitely improve in leaps and bounds from race to race. So you never know where the next superstar is potentially going to come from. So it'll be very interesting to see this one, obviously, out on the West Coast. And then the final one is the other one that everybody will really be looking forward to here, and that is the Holy Bull, which you can see here has a very, very full field. Pletcher, again, very loaded in this race. It'll be very interesting to see how Enticed does. He's a very, very highly touted horse out of the McLaughlin barn. Free Drop Billy, you've always got to respect Dale Romans. A couple of others in there, you know. You just never know. It's going to be a very, very exciting race, a really good chance to see what some of these 3-year-olds are made of as they go on in these prep races, and of course to the races that go on to higher points as well. So definitely something to consider and to check out all this week. And if you really want some of the best insight and some of the best writing when it comes to looking at all of these horses, there is somebody out there that you all have to check out. His name is Steve Haskin, and he has his Derby Dozen. Usually you can find it on bloodhorse.com, but he also freelances it as well. Just, the guy has an amazing wealth of knowledge. He's got such a tremendous talent when it comes to writing and for looking at horses. Check it out. Everybody checks his lists out as far as a lot of the other top lists that are out there, and I'll show some of those as well as we go on in future weeks. But really, Steve is considered, you know, kind of the man right now when it comes to writing about the Derby. So definitely check his races, or his comments about all the horses that he has on his Derby Dozen. Comes out weekly. Definitely something you want to check out. It's where I get a lot of my information when I bring out these broadcasts as well. So we did talk a little bit about the Holy Bull, and you know, well, the Holy Bull is a race that was named after a horse that really took the racing world by storm in the early 1990s, and we're going to learn a little bit more about him right now.
It was a big, beautiful, gray beast who thrilled racegoers in the early 1990s. His name was Holy Bull, and he was an absolute beast on the racetrack, putting together an amazing, if unfortunately cut short, racing career. Born in January of 1991, the son of Great Above was bred and owned by Rachel Carpenter, seen here with her longtime trainer, Warren Jimmy Kroll. Sadly, Carpenter never got a chance to see the greatest horse her operation ever bred. She died on the very day that Holy Bull made his first start, and a winning one at that, as a 2-year-old on August 14th, 1993, at Monmouth Park. In her will, she left all of her horses to the ownership and care of Jimmy Kroll, and the career of both Jimmy, whose only other horse of note to that point had been the brilliant Mr. Prospector, and the bull took off for the heights of stardom. After that maiden win, and an easy allowance score at Belmont Park, Holy Bull jumped into the big leagues by racing in the Grade 1 Belmont Futurity. There, he would meet the also undefeated phenom of the Saratoga Summer, the Hare. The Hare had won all 3 of his stakes races for 2-year-olds at the Spa, with spectacular bursts of speed in the stretch that left fans awestruck and thinking he could be the next big superstar. Holy Bull had other ideas, though, over that muddy going at Belmont Park.
Prenup is second, and De Hare is getting on track, and here he comes on the outside, but he has to catch Holy Bull with less than a furlong to run. De Hare on the outside is second, as Holy Bull continues to hold on. De Hare giving his all as they come down to the line, and it is Holy Bull! Holy Bull holds on by a diminishing half length.
Not being nominated as a foal, Holy Bull skipped the Breeders' Cup and won a stakes race in Florida to close out his 2-year-old season. He got a little rest and recuperation, and then went on to get ready for his pursuit of the Run for the Roses the following May. That campaign with a game win in the Hutchinson Stakes, followed by his first defeat in the Fountain of Youth after getting caught in a speed duel early and having some breathing difficulties develop as well. Trainer Kroll adjusted his equipment to prevent the breathing issue, and as you can see, the real Holy Bull, in the words of jockey Mike Smith, returned with a vengeance to win the Florida Derby.
4.5 now, 5-length lead. The battle will be for second. Halo's Image ride the rails and go for Gin. A dramatic performance this afternoon by Holy Bull by 5, tight for second.
After amounted to basically a tune-up prep in a very easy win in the Bluegrass, he was made the favorite for the 1994 Kentucky Derby. Derby dreams were not to be, though, as he broke a little sluggish, never really found his rhythm, and finished back in the pack in the slop at Churchill. He was treated for a possible bacterial infection after that, so perhaps he was just not at his bullish best on that first Saturday in May.
Rallying on the far outside, American chances there. Tinner's
Kroll had what some would say was a much more ambitious next start planned for him. The Met Mile at Belmont. It was a race that often featured the best milers in the country, and he would be a 3-year-old going against some of the top older horses as well. Holy Bull seemed in another dimension for this race, though, going to the front and pulling away to an impressive 5-length win.
Devil is due his fourth, but it's Holy Bull, hand ridden by Mike Smith, and he'll go on to a magnificent Met Mile. Holy Bull by 5.
Skipping the final jewel of the Triple Crown, Holy Bull went on to win the Dwyer and the Haskell before getting the toughest test of his life in the Midsummer Derby, the Travers Stakes. Many had wondered if he truly could get 1.25 miles after his flop in the Derby. This race defined the greatness of Holy Bull, though, and will be a race call that will live on in racing lore for the ages. And to show how amazing that performance was, note that it was 17 lengths back to the third-place finisher, Tabasco Cat.
It is Holy Bull who runs an eye-opening 3/4 in 1:10.3, and he rounds the far turn with a 4-length lead. Unaccounted for has now moved into second. Tabasco Cat is still 7 lengths from the lead, and Concern begins to hit his best stride. He has 10 lengths to make up, and Mike Smith lets the bull roll. He's in front by 5 as they come to the quarter pole, but there is cause for Concern. Concern comes on second on the outside. Tabasco Cat is well behind in third. They're coming down to the final furlong. Mike Smith asking Holy Bull for everything he has. Concern is coming hard under Jerry Belly. It's still Holy Bull desperately trying to hold Concern a final thrust, but it is Holy Bull as game as a racehorse can be coming down to the wire. Holy Bull wins. What a hero. Concern came to him at the end, and it was 15 lengths back to a Belmont Stakes winner.
One more win against older horses in the Woodward Stakes closed out the racing season for the Bull. Kroll felt his charge needed a rest after a tough campaign and elected to once again bypass the Breeders' Cup. That 8-win season was more than enough, though, to to earn him Champion 3-year-old and Horse of the Year honors in 1994. 1995 was looking to be a bright year for Holy Bull as he set his sights on defending his title of Horse of the Year. There was another older horse that was also emerging at this time, though, and his name was Cigar. The racing world was thrilled at the possibility of a rivalry between the two. The fans got their wish, but only for about a half mile when the two squared off in the Don Handicap at Gulfstream Park. Holy Bull was suddenly pulled up along the backstretch.
4.5 lengths. Primitive Hall is running in third. Bonus Money is fourth. It's another 4 back to Danville. And Virginia Rapids alongside him. Holy Bull stopped! Holy Bull stopped suddenly! And Cigar has taken the lead. An astonishing development here. Mike Smith is pulling up Holy Bull down the backstretch.
Suffering a bowed tendon, he could have been brought back to the races as a 5-year-old after a long rest for the remainder of that 1995 season, but Kroll had felt that he was too valuable of a horse to risk it, and he was officially retired. In that race, it was almost as if Holy Bull was passing the torch to Cigar on the backstretch that afternoon, for we all know what kind of career Cigar went on to have. As a sire, Holy Bull was able to pass his genes on to a son who accomplished what he could not, when Giacomo won the Derby at 50-1 in 2005. He also produced 2000 juvenile champ Macho Uno and went on to be a very successful broodmare sire. Sadly, we just recently lost the great bull to the infirmaries of old age in June of last year. In 1990, a stakes race was inaugurated at Gulfstream Park called the Preview Stakes to take the place on the Derby Trail of the Flamingo Stakes, which was no longer being run after the closure of Hialeah. In 1996, in honor of his induction into the Hall of Fame, the race was renamed the Holy Bull Stakes, and today it serves as an important first prep of the year for a lot of those newly minted 3-year-olds in their quest for glory and roses in May.
Then comes My Golden Song.
The horse to turn that Holy Bull Derby double was none other than the amazing Barbaro, who turned this gutsy win in the slop into roses a few months later, before running in that ill-fated Preakness Stakes that will always be etched in our memory.
Barbaro leads by a length and a half. Great Point is charging from the back of the pack. Barbaro is in front. Great Point tries to pass them all, but he can't pass Barbaro.
This education segment brought to you by Thoroughfan. Check out Thoroughfan.com to learn everything about this amazing sport we call thoroughbred racing, and to become a member today. Thoroughfan, giving the fans a voice.
So there you go, a little bit of information about Holy Bull there. Hopefully, it was a horse that, I got to see up in New York a couple of times. My dad was a huge Holy Bull fan. I probably wasn't totally appreciative of how great he was at that point. I came to appreciate it a little bit more as I got older and really understood just how amazing some of the stats and the figures and just the races that he ran truly were. You mentioned, or I should say, you saw at the end of that little segment that was brought to you partially by Thoroughfan, and I did tease a little bit earlier that we were hopefully going to have an interview with Michael Amo, the founder of Thoroughfan, to show to all of you. Unfortunately, the technology gods apparently I have still not appeased, so we are going to have to push that back to next week's show. Do apologize for that. We did have some problems just recording the interview there, so we are going to work on that and make sure we got it all right for next week, because I want everybody to really understand how amazing an organization Thoroughfan is. I'm really proud to be a member of it. It really is something great, and they put out an amazing newsletter every year, or every week I should say. Definitely something you want to check out. Some amazing people that are part of this group. It is the only nationally recognized nonprofit fan organization in the country. We've got chapters all over the country. You definitely want to look at getting involved in this. Check out Thoroughfan.com. Michael Amo's going to talk a lot more about it hopefully next week, so we're really excited to have him on to talk about it a little bit more. And you can see, actually, if you really want to get some insight into some of the races that are going on this week, hey, why not check out Handicapper's Corner, where they are actually even talking about the Holy Bull Stakes themselves. So definitely check that out, get some insight, maybe to make some good bets there for you. Definitely something you more than likely want to check out. As we come back live here, one thing that I think a lot of people have been following a little bit is, especially this time of year, and one thing when we backtrack a touch to the Pegasus and Gunrunner winning, a lot of people probably have forgotten that Gunrunner was supposed to run in the Pegasus last year. which really would have made a very interesting race between him, Arrogate, and Chrome. Unfortunately, he was not able to participate because of quarantines that were placed at the fairgrounds because of something called equine herpes virus. And I know this is something that everybody tends to hear about a lot this year and how it really wreaks havoc with racing schedules and all of that thing. You can see just some of the headlines right here that have been put up. You know, just one horse testing positive sometimes can really cause problems with this. You know, 2 barns at New Bolton Center were quarantined, and some of the horses then that left those barns, their barns had to be quarantined, all because of this. Laurel Park, and it really creates havoc with shipping, horses being allowed to ship in but then not ship out, horses having to scratch for major races because they haven't been allowed to ship in. So I did want to take a little bit of time just to kind of go over exactly what we're talking about when we talk about herpes virus and why it is a concern, and especially a specific form of it. And this is mainly for the fans and people that maybe just want to get a general understanding of what we're talking about here. And the American Association of Equine Practitioners has put out a wonderful PowerPoint presentation. Most of the slides are directly off this, so you can just check them right out there. Just search for the AAEP and the equine herpes virus. It's a wonderful wealth of information as far as that goes. But when we talk about equine herpes virus, I want everybody to, you know, kind of remember, we're not talking about kind of the same herpes virus that you or I could get. You know, it's the same thing in the sense that basically we can, you know, all get herpes viruses and types of herpes viruses. However, we all can't share the same types of herpes viruses. So these are not the same types of herpes viruses that you're going to see basically with getting cold sores like we do, or things like that. There's tons of different strains out there, and they usually say almost every horse at some point is infected in their life. So why is it such a big problem when we look at it from the racing world? And really, it is because, as we go to come back here to our slideshow, let me pull this back up here for a second. You know, obviously there's multiple forms, but it definitely is a majority of a respiratory disease. You know, but there is another form of it that we worry about, and that is more of the neurologic form. And as we look here, there's a couple of things that, you know, EHV1, which is one type of strain of the virus that normally we see as being a major problem. Respiratory infections, neonatal death and abortion, obviously that's more of a concern if you have a breeding operation or your mares are in foal, certainly something to be very concerned about. But it is that one on the bottom right, the neurological, or the equine herpes myeloencephalitis as we call it, big fancy vet type terms. And this basically is where the virus causes a severe inflammation in the blood vessels that then cause a secondary problem with a lot of the tissues in the nervous system. And you get these kind of postures with horses having a lot of trouble walking, a lot of trouble, you know, just ambulating. Some of them are down permanently. And because the disease can be so contagious, as we'll talk about here in a second, and this is just a little bit more information on the actual neurologic form, it can be fatal, and it, again, is the biggest concern when you have high stocking densities of horses, such as in boarding facilities or especially racetracks with a lot of horses on the backside. And because the virus really can be spread so easily among different things, basically every horse is at risk when they start, if you have a horse with the neurologic form, of spreading it to other horses, which is why we take this so seriously, which is why it's a reportable disease to the state governments, as a matter of fact, and the state veterinarians, who then impose quarantines on all of these barns to make sure that no other horses in the barns test positive. Now, obviously, with racing being the way it is today, especially at some of the smaller tracks, there's a lot of shipping in and shipping out that goes on. Some people train at training centers and ship into these tracks. Some of the tracks that are part of more circuits, such as the Mid-Atlantic Circuit, will ship to various tracks to try to get in races that really fit their horses best. This wreaks havoc with it, and obviously it's a trickle-down effect to very, very small fields, races being canceled, and affecting the bettors who want to see larger races, but it is something we have to definitely keep under control, and it is something that is very, very serious and something that is a major concern. So that's why it is such a problem with this time of year. Usually, obviously, horses are more contained inside, you know, with the colder weather. The colder weather can stress their systems a little bit more, which brings out any kind of latent herpes virus infections that can be there. So it certainly is something to be aware of, and it does, as you can see here real quick, require major, usually quarantine protocols. You want to make sure that, you know, everything is properly disinfected. This is just a picture of a horse getting actually a nasal swab to check for all of that stuff going on. So that's just a little bit of information that we wanted to share with all of you about herpes virus. There's so much more at AAEP. Just certainly, as I said, Google it. It's certainly something you're definitely going to want to check out. But now, as we come back live, you know, obviously that's the medical part of the show. I'm sure that's the boring part that nobody ever wants to hear about. So let's get back and talk a little bit about racing. And before we go any further, if you remember back to towards the beginning of the show, we did talk a little bit about apprentice jockeys and exactly what an apprentice jockey is commonly known as at the racetrack. So here is the question, and did you get the right answer?
So, earlier in the show, we asked, what actually is a nickname given to apprentice jockeys, usually by racetrack veterans? Well, if you said a bug, you were correct. Called bug boys or bug girls, the term actually came from the little asterisk or bug that would appear next to their name or their weight, signifying that they were an apprentice. All jockeys actually start out at apprentice weights or bug weights before they graduate, become journeymen.
All right, so if you guessed bug boy or bug girl or a bug, you are correct, and hopefully that'll get a little information, a fun little trivia fact that you can always bring out at parties to make yourself look super smart. And what's very interesting about bug boys and bug girls is a lot of times you'll sometimes see them get higher caliber mounts just from the sheer fact that really a bug is allowed a weight allowance. So basically they can ride at a lower weight than a journeyman jockey. So trainers sometimes take advantage of that, and sometimes it is very hard actually for an apprentice jockey once they clear their apprentice status, and that's usually either done after so many races won or so many races ridden in, or a time frame. It varies sometimes depending on what you look at. Then becoming a journeyman where they have to run at regular weights. It can be difficult on their career sometimes to find those same types of mounts because there's always apprentices behind them that now will come in and ride at those lower weights that trainers will try to take advantage of. But again, remember, every jockey starts as an apprentice, so keep your eye on those ones that win the apprentice awards because they really may be the next big thing when it comes to racing. So, every jockey looks to hopefully stay lucky in this game by completing winning streaks of their own, and the question right now is, are you interested in staying lucky and potentially winning a lot of money, all for free?
Want a shot at winning $1 million bucks? Who wouldn't? Here's your chance, the new Stay Lucky app from America's Best Racing. First, you've got to download it. It's available on Android and iPhone. Now that you've got it downloaded, just click on the app and set up your account. Once you're logged in, click on this quick tutorial on how to play. Now, you're just about ready to start picking some winners and building a streak. But before you do, a little help for you from some pros. Each week, the best races in the country are loaded onto Stay Lucky. All you got to do is click Make a Pick, and you've got a fresh menu of races to sort through. You can pick one horse for as many races as you like. The more you play, the faster your streak will grow. As you start stringing together winners, you'll start racking up prizes. Get to that 20 win mark, you're gonna win $1 million. And with the Stay Lucky app, you're always just a click away from everything that's on americasbestracing.net. So, what are you waiting for? Download it, start picking winners, and stay lucky.
So that is a very, very fun way to get involved in the game, learn a little bit about it. I've got it on my phone right here, actually. I'm pulling it up as we speak. You know, started out last week with the races. I can't pick the winner in a walkover, so you definitely don't want to go by anything that I suggest. But we do actually have some people that are currently building a little bit of a winning streak. And if this is just a straight screenshot from the phone showing some of the ones that are in the lead right now. So we've got people that have a 3-race win streak going on, and of course 2, and it'll be very interesting. We've got a ton of races, which I'm going to show you right now, that are coming up in this next weekend set of races that you can potentially bet on or pick your winners of. The Robert Lewis of Withers, the Holy Bill, we talked about those. But there certainly are some horse races for the girls and some older horses as well. So the Forward Gal, the Swale, the Sweetest Chant, and the Las Virginis on Sunday. So definitely get in, check this out. It is a free app to download. It really is amazing. It's a lot of fun to play. Hopefully in future episodes that come next week and beyond, I will actually have my picks for you guys live on the air here. Didn't get a chance to it today. Unfortunately, I am a veterinarian, and sometimes duty calls before racing glory. So, just wanted to show all of that stuff. Hope everybody does get a chance to stay lucky this weekend as we come back live here to wrap up the show a little bit. And I do want to show one more thing before we go this week, and it is a very kind of interesting video. We try to find some weird things that happen out in racing and stuff like that, and I will preface this video with two things. One, the sound is not on it, because it's kind of like a Twitter grab of a video, and two, while a jockey does kind of fall off the horse here, I can rest assured to tell you that he was perfectly fine with this, did not suffer any major injuries, and actually came back to ride 2 winners the next day. Jockeys truly are some of the most amazing athletes out there, and some of the toughest people just in general for what they do. So this credit goes for this definitely comes to at Tampa Shades, who is kind of their media guru down there at Tampa Bay Downs, and it is Jesus Castanon. And basically, just kind of watch this and see what happens. It kind of gives new meaning to the term musical jockeys. So definitely something that was not something you see every day. You know, again, fortunately, Jesus was fine after that fall. The horse was okay as well. No major injuries to report in any of that, which is always the most important thing that we worry about when it comes to the racing game. But again, definitely something you do not see every day. If you happen to see something that's a little weird, unusual, or just kind of makes you do a double take, send it to me. I'll be happy to show it here on the air at, again, shelterdoc38@yahoo.com, shelterdoc38@yahoo.com. I'm more than happy to showcase anything that you guys as fans bring out. So that's just about going to do it for this episode of Doc's Racing Digest. We are still tinkering, as I said, with the format. We are still tinkering a little bit with the technology gods. I don't know what I have to sacrifice around here, but I will find some piece of machinery to sacrifice to get some of the stuff on my computer to work right for next week's episode. I do thank everybody who is either joined in live and watching this or watching this on replay. I do really appreciate it. Hope you're learning something. If you have any suggestions, I'm always open to them. I promise I will not cry too much over harsh criticism. But I do appreciate it, and really, everybody get out to a racetrack, really enjoy this amazing game that's out there, and show the support for the horsemen, for the horses, and let's bring racing back to really what it's meant to be, which is just a truly amazing sport that all of us should really be just so thrilled and honored to be able to participate in. So, I do want to, again, thank everybody for joining us. We'll be back next week, 7:30 on Friday. We'll recap all of the major 3-year-old Road to the Triple Crown races, see if any new developments have popped up, if there's any new superstars on the horizon, see what else is happening in the week of racing, maybe have another area to kind of educate a little bit. We'll have another quiz, all of that, and Michael Ammo from Thoroughfan will definitely be with us next week. So until then, enjoy the racetrack, may all your tickets be winners, and try not to bet too much.
One of the racehorse rescues that is very near and dear to Doc and many people in the Mid-Atlantic region is Pennsylvania Racehorse Rehoming, Rehabilitation, and Rescue. Check out PAR today and see all the amazing things that they have done as they take all these horses from the racetrack to the ribbons and to wonderful second careers. Support PAR today. A proud member of the organization Thoroughfan, the only nationally recognized fan organization for thoroughbred racing. Check out thoroughfan.com today and find out all the amazing things there are to learn about this great sport of thoroughbred horse racing, and also how to become a member and add your voice today. Thoroughfan, giving the fans a voice.